What really is freedom? We might all have a little bit different understandings of freedom, so a great place to start is the dictionary. The Oxford English Dictionary defines freedom in this way: the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Okay, that little phrase, as one wants, is really important. We have more understanding of mental and emotional health than we've ever had before, and yet we are not getting more free. Because while we crave it and we desire it, we don't actually know what it is and how to use it. Let me give you a biblical understanding of freedom to contrast the Oxford English Dictionary, okay? And I'm actually gonna read this from like a theological word book, and that might feel kind of heavy to you, but you're smart people and you can track with this, and it'll be on the screen. Okay, this is a biblical understanding of freedom from the Lexham Theological Word Book. It says this: freedom is the state that emerges after God has acted. Okay, so we're not born free. We're born with a desire for freedom, and that's where so much of the tension we feel in life comes from. We were all created for a purpose and what it means to be a human, and that is to know, love, worship, and enjoy God forever. And I would add to that, not just enjoy, know, love God, but also to love others and to operate within this created world in a way that is full and flourishing. I believe you see this in the garden, that we are intended to have right relationship with God, right relationship with others, and right relationship with the world around us. That is what Jesus came to restore. This definition goes on to say this is a freedom that has been won for us by the death and the resurrection of the Messiah. There's no other way to get this freedom. It can't be engineered. It can't be manufactured. By the power of the Spirit, the Christian seeks to live into this freedom and to join with God in freeing others while we await freedom's full realization at Christ's second coming. That is the official theological definition of freedom. But here's a simpler version. Freedom is the state of flourishing in our creational purpose of unhindered relationship with God, others, and the world in which we live. First of all, we see the word free or freedom in the very beginning. In the second chapter of the Bible, God says to Adam, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden. There it is. You are made for freedom, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for on that day you eat from it, you will certainly die. God was giving Adam a level of freedom under his guidance and his care. The way we find our freedom is living under the wisdom of the words and the ways of God, because that's how we align with our design. And then we see the counterfeit version jump in one chapter later in Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, as the serpent says to Eve, God knows that when you eat it, the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Counterfeit freedom is when we attempt to decide what's right and wrong. And from the very first pages of the Bible, what we discover is that we were made for freedom by God, but that counterfeit freedom has disastrous consequences. And we have been living in those disastrous consequences ever since. God hears their cries and God sets them free. And the deliverance of Exodus becomes the primary example from that point forward of God's heart for his people. I want you to be free, but it's a different kind of freedom than what you think. It's actually better than what you can imagine. The law was actually created to cultivate freedom, but no one was ever able to accomplish it through those means. And then Jesus shows up on the scene. And in his first big, heavy sermon in Luke chapter 4, starting in verse 17, the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. And unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus shows up on the scene and says, I'm here to set you free, to give you true freedom. He goes on to say in John chapter 8, he who the Son sets free is free indeed, is going to get real freedom, authentic freedom, genuine freedom, not counterfeit freedom that leads to more conflict and more trauma and more pain. Jesus came to set us free. But the process of becoming fully free is often more of a journey than we realize. It often is not automatic like we would want it to be. The long-term effects of sin on our life often still remain even after we say yes to Jesus. And his desire is that as we continue to walk with him, we would continue to become more free.